I don't know if I'm wasting my time by being here or not. It boggles the mind. I don't understand how you honestly think you're acting in the public interest, or how you think you're being inclusive to those of us most affected by the proposed rule change when you only give us 1 week to get ready and be here. Especially when Senator Cantwell and Congressman Inslee told you folks from Alaska, Idaho, and Oregon wanted to attend and asked for a reasonable amount of notice. What kind of idiot would go out of their way to build opposition like you have?
Roger, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I am a news geek. I love current events. I follow news in the print, broadcast, and internet media. As this country was about to invade and occupy Iraq in 2003, I scoured the media for objective truth regarding the wisdom of the impending invasion. In my searching, I was amazed at the stories coming from 2 sources that were so unlike those coming from elsewhere. In the United States, the newspaper chain Knight Ridder, now McClatchy Newspapers, was heroic in their investigative reporting that pointed out how misguided an attack on Iraq would be. Outside the US, the BBC provided similar coverage. The mainstream media, comprised of all those media outlets which are now owned by such a very, very small number of mega corporations, had one theme and one theme only in early 2003: let's go to war. How different that message might have been if we'd had true media diversity in this country, if it were actually possible to hear a wide variety of investigative analysis prior to something as important as invading another country. Don't give me the line of, well, anyone can go on the internet and see all these different points of view. For a huge portion of the hardworking citizenry of this country, there is neither time nor energy to ferret out news outside of the mainstream media. We citizens should be able to turn on our televisions at 6:00 p.m. and see a wide variety of viewpoints and analysis. We citizens should not have to be information research specialists in order to be well informed. This is what is meant by the public interest. Don't tell me that market forces will sort all this out. Market forces are concerned about one thing and one thing only: money. Profit. If everything were left to market forces, we would still have slavery and child labor in this country, as both practices were very profitable. Measures such as requiring diversity of media ownership must be taken against market forces for the public interest. Thank you.
Matthew Pfeiffer, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Matthew Pfeiffer. I'm a local high school student attending Nova Alternative High School. 4 days ago, I got to vote in my first election. I took special interest and became involved in the local school board elections. And examining these races closely, it became clear that there was a concerted, well-funded effort to elect a corporate-backed slate of candidates. Most Seattleites depend on these few mainstream sources for issues ranging from environmental, military, and education. And these few mainstream sources endorsed those corporate candidates. Despite a huge grassroots effort to oppose the privatization of our schools, Seattle voters elected every corporate slate candidate to the school board, putting in power the most conservative board in 20 years. The corporate media is already streamlined behind one agenda. The consolidation of media is a consolidation of opinion. The diversity in media is a necessity for a thriving democratic society. And as a conscious citizen, I demand that the FCC defend local media and stop media monopolies. I also want to express my disappointment in the FCC for only giving 5 business days of notice before this event. It's unacceptable. This event could and should have been much more accommodating for all people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Alex Stonehill. I'm an independent journalist specializing in international reporting. Last year I spent about 7 months abroad covering stories that hadn't been reported in our mainstream press here in the US, especially about how the actions of our government and our people are affecting people in the rest of the world. When I came back, I had a really hard time finding American media outlets to publish these stories. At first I thought I was doing something wrong, But when I started attending corporate journalism conferences and building relationships with corporate media outlets, I realized it wasn't just my problem. Because of media consolidation, there just aren't very many outlets that offer original international reporting. The big media conglomerates don't find international coverage because they're too concerned with their bottom lines and they think that it's too expensive. Instead, virtually every newspaper in the country buys the same stories from the AP and other news wires. The big news corporations have been closing foreign bureaus at such a rapid pace that today, for all the newspapers in the US combined, there are less than 250 foreign correspondents to cover the entire globe. I'm sure everyone here can agree that it would be disastrous for our country to be cut off from information from outside of our borders at a time when our fates are so interconnected by things like economic globalization, climate change, and our military involvements abroad. But that's just what's going to happen if you relax media ownership regulations further. So please don't do it. And in my last few seconds, Mr. Chairman, in response to your brief statement, please take responsibility for the enormous power that you have, especially in comparison with all of us here, and don't pass the buck on to Congress. Heed our message that media consolidation needs to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Stoutville. Jacob Galfno. I just want to get my...
I'm Jacob Galfano.
Okay.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here as a part of this democratic process. Not a lot of people in this world can do something like this, and to make a mockery of it is reprehensible. I hope that you take these public comments seriously. Jaded by the homogenized and sensational nature of mainstream news reporting, I decided to help start a student chapter of the Canadian not-for-profit Journalists for Human Rights at the University of Washington. Now, it is our aim to provide students an alternative to mainstream reporting, a lofty goal. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to deprogram college students who are young enough to be influenceable, but old enough to know better? That it's even a challenge to show that journalism can be humane and engaging is in large part due to the stranglehold that large corporations have on our media system. Please, commissioners, help make our job easier, listen to the people, support more local and diverse voices in mainstream media. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah Cabbage. Sarah Cabbage. Mary Catherine Roundtree.
Hi, I'm Mary Catherine Roundtree. I'm the founder of Missoula Community Radio, and I'm a member of the Northwest Radio Group founded right here in Seattle. Tonight, I'm here to speak for dozens of people from the state of Montana who wanted to be here to speak directly to you, Mr. Commissioners, but because of the last-minute announcement, they were not able to get here, and they've been denied an important and final opportunity to speak to you. Mr. Commissioners, I drove 500 miles this morning so I could be here in person to tell you that your proposed rule changes to media ownership will shut out an entire future generation of broadcasters. You will leave us with nothing. Right now, within 60 miles of Missoula, Montana, there are only 25 licensed entities in the non-commercial FM band, but it's full. 5 of these are owned by the University of Montana. All of the remaining 80% are owned by religious broadcasters with programming ranging from very conservative to neo-Confederate. None of it is local, none of it serves our community. It is ill represents the strong-willed, individualistic, creative, thinking people living in an isolated region of this country. Furthermore, the Constitution of the state of Montana, ratified in the relatively modern year of 1972, states that no law shall be passed impairing the freedom of speech or expression. Every person, it says, shall be free to speak or publish whatever he, and I think they also meant she, will on any subjects. These are our rights, Mr. Commissioners, and you are the ones tasked with giving us access to the airwaves and holding these rights up. Montana's Constitution was established in order to protect big rivers, big mountains, big sky, and even bigger ideas. It ensures us a high quality of life and equal opportunity for all. Nowhere, at no point, at any time does it mention big corporate consolidated media.
Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Elise Child, the Outreach Director for SCAN Community Media, Seattle's only public access channel. Media consolidation means a loss of local diverse voices. Without community media, the organizations, individuals, and groups that are the community would have no access to mass media except as others decide. SCAN fills that void and helps hundreds of diverse groups and individuals get their message out. The messages created reaches out and into their own communities. One example of many is our immigrant programming. The unique and invaluable information provided to these local communities is not provided on other channels. Where else would these organizations and citizens have an opportunity like this? Local programming on SCAN is where you can find out about local news in our community. You'll see news about the war you won't see on any other channel. It's where you can find out about organizations in our community, about what people are doing in our community, about local entertainment in our community, about minority and immigrant voices in our community. It is our diverse community represented on our local channel. People are real on our channel. They're like all of us. Seattle only has one public access channel, and it's losing funding. We struggle to put these diverse voices on. I want your actions to strengthen local voices, not weaken them. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's late and others have spoken so eloquently, and I'm thinking about those of our public servants who may have come representing one position. How can you dare to be open to us and listen to us? How can you dare, if maybe some other people are counting on you to hold a certain position? I don't know what it's like in politics. So I wrote a song for you. Oh, where are our great leaders, our wise and noble leaders? Have courage to truly hear us. Days are breaking in my soul.
Thank you. John Hebert.
Hi, my name is John Hebert, and I'm a dad. And so I just hope I make a connection with you guys. I really do. I'm also a 20-year veteran of the United States Navy, and I was going to say something until I heard one of the panelists say something that sent shivers down my spine, and she was doing it for a message of altruism. She said, I can flip a switch and shape the market. Did you hear that? And Big Jim got out there and we filled that truck up, or we did this great thing. Did you hear what she said? I can flip a switch and shape the market. It's frightening. I've been on 30 countries on 5 continents. They flip the switch and they shape the market in a lot of those countries. This is big stuff. This is huge, huge stuff. You got a piece of paper on there, First Amendment. I was at my daughter's assembly today, and they honored us. I was her guest of honor there at the assembly, and they honored us, veterans. And as I was leaving tonight, she goes, "Are you going to go fight for us, Dad, like you did in the Navy?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." Okay? This is big stuff, all right? Whether you agree with, the quote-unquote rhetoric or recognize the passion here. This is really big stuff. I've said it 5 times, but it is huge, all right? Flip the switch and shape the market.
Thank you. Before I announce the next name, would the following people come?
Just woke up. All right. Britney Spears, public trust, follow the money. I've heard a lot of speakers tonight, and I don't need to repeat it, starting with Commissioner Chop, of talking how we've been dumbed down the last 30, 40 years on civic intelligence, but how our media has, because of follow the money, it's much cheaper to do the Britney Spears story. Did Britney Spears have panties on last night, or did she not? I watched Fox News this morning. She did not wear panties last night. It's ironic that this meeting's being held this weekend. Sunday is Veterans Day. Now, in the fall of 2002 and into early 2003, our corporate media somehow convinced 77% of us that Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11. Here we are 5 years into this little Iraqi adventure. 4,000 Americans are dead, and Sunday is Veterans Day. That is what corporate media is about. And here we are. It ain't good, folks. Ain't good at all. And I just have one question for Mr. Martin. I see my time's up, but one question.
Thank you very much.
I would like to know what job you're going to get after this, because I'm sure it's a very nice job.
Thank you very much. We have many more people to go. Michael Waters.
Martin Klansman. Folks around here just call me Kiwi Bob. I've been doing a little bit of thinking about tonight, and I've decided that this is a fraud that's being perpetrated on the American public, and that, Mr. Martin, you're behind this fraud. 5 days notice of a public hearing. I'm going to ask you to do the right thing. You're the engineer of this train wreck in the making. You have the ability to apply the brakes. You have the ability to do the right thing, which is apply the brakes. You also have the ability to do the right thing and resign as head of the Federal Communications Commission. Take your choice. I want to focus the rest of my testimony tonight on the fact that for nearly 32 years now, I've been an avid listener of KBCS FM, Bellevue, Seattle, community radio, 91.3 FM, also on the internet at kbcs.fm. That is diversity in media. But you've heard all of this tonight. You've heard the testimony of the majority of the will of the American people. The question is, will you abide by that? So I would like to uninterrupted put forth yet another point of view. I've thought seriously about.
Thank you. Sam Parker. Stephanie, Sam?
Yeah, that's me. Hi. Before I begin, Commissioner, my name is Sam Parker. I'm 21 years old, and I, Mr. Martin, am ashamed enough for the both of us, because anyone who schedules this hearing 5 days in advance and then dismisses the voices of the people that he is sworn to serve and protect obviously has no shame to spare. Sirs, Commissioners, I walk down the street and I see that I have no place and no voice in the media that we have today. This is true for any minority opinion and group living in the U.S. In the television screens and radio broadcasts of our nation, we see and hear not ourselves, but caricatures of ourselves, the people that corporate media and the other conglomerates want us to be. I have no interest in being that person, sirs. We have no interest in being these people. And yet here we are having a hearing, not a debate, because it's pretty apparent where public opinion falls on this subject, but a hearing on whether to give these corporations more influence over what we see and hear. And worse, these regulations will come at the cost of community media and low-power FM stations who allow myself and my peers here direct access to the media in order to shape our communities for the better. Commissioners, if you strike down the cross-ownership media ban, you will only prove what myself and the American public have been suspecting for a while, that the FCC is no longer the arbiter of justice for the broadcast media, but rather the auctioneer who has sold our voices to the highest bidder. And I swear to you that this is not empty rhetoric, Commissioners. This is what I and many others believe. And I beg and plead the Commissioners of the FCC to prove me wrong.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm 65, just as a citizen. But as I was watching the proceedings tonight, I was thinking that this should probably have been a 3-day hearing. And speakers, you want to hear from us that maybe we should have had 5 minutes to speak and give substance. And I wonder, as you go back to your hotels this evening, if you're going to turn on the news or tomorrow morning, and how much of this hearing is going to be reported. Where will be the substance? Where will be the truth? Will it be a one-liner, a 2-minute blip? It seems to me that America is in an identity crisis right now between being a true democracy and being a corporate dominion. And it's not that we don't need big business, but there's something way out of balance between the micro and the macro. And this country was founded on a rich assortment of ideas and creativity. And when we have this sterile, homogeneous media on every night, every day, it diminishes us and it undermines our very culture, and the media is the power of that. It's the distribution of information.
Thank you.
Keep in mind separation of church, state, and corporation.
Kevin Thompson. Kevin Thompson. Gregory Lewis. Go ahead, Mr. Curvey.
Okay, my name is Gordon Curvey. I'm the executive producer of Music Inner City television show. It's the only hip-hop and R&B music video show on Comcast On Demand all over Western Washington, and we're also on Scan TV 77 and 29. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want you guys to take notes on this. I'm here to talk about why I refuse media conglomeration. Because, for instance, KGR Radio, I've been highly outspoken against KGR. In 18 years, and you're talking about lack of diversity, it's a clear channel station. 18 years, they've never had an African American on the air when it's a sports channel, when football, basketball, and baseball is dominated by the African Americans and people of color. They've never had an African American on the air. I want you guys to do something about this. It's so serious that someone from the FCC, a former lawyer who's no longer there from the FCC, from a Clear Channel, came up and met with us Carl Mack, who used to be the NAACP chairman here. And since then, they have banned me from calling in. They've called and other things. I'm known as a black racist by KJR. I want the FCC. Now, you're talking about diversity. Media in this town is terrible. A perfect example is KJR Radio. Now, it's like the old boy network was in radio up here in Seattle, where a white person help another white person get jobs. It's a problem here. It's a problem at Cairo. It's a problem at KVI, and all these radio stations here. Thank God for KRIZ and KYIZ, the only African-American-owned radio station in the whole area. So you can hear Al Sharpton, where you can hear other minority voices instead of the strictly white voices like on KGR, which, by the way, has a contest every year with instead of 64 basketball teams, there's 64 women broken down in brackets. Now, you talk about sexist and racist, it's a problem. Do something about it.
Journalism ideally exists to monitor the halls of power, while the mass media exists to sell products for those who walk the halls of power. These two goals are mutually exclusive, and when executives have one foot in each sector, a schizophrenic and deadly conflict of interest arises. Members of the boards of directors of news corporations also sit on the boards of weapons manufacturers and other companies with vested interests around the world. General Electric is the third largest military contractor and also the owner of NBC News Network. Back in 1950, Charles Wilson, General Electric's board chairman, addressed the Newspaper Publishers Association, quote, "If the people were not convinced that the free world is in mortal danger, it would be impossible for Congress to vote the vast sums now being spent to avert this danger. With the support of public opinion as marshaled by the press, we are off to a good start. It is our job, yours and mine, to keep our people convinced that the only way to keep disaster away from our shores is to build up America's might." Though Wilson may have said it nearly 60 years ago, this is exactly the same method GE and others have used in the present day to embroil us in a disastrous war for the benefit of a few elites sitting on the top. In 2000, GE, Time Warner, News Corporation, Viacom, and others shared lobbyist representation in Washington with Lockheed Martin, one of the world's largest weapons contractor. Lockheed Martin has since been reaping immense profits from the war in Iraq, at the expense of the lives of nearly 4,000 U.S. troops and over 1 million Iraqi civilians. At home, News Corp and GE shared lobbyists with Enron a year before the scandal that fleeced thousands of its employees. These are just a handful of the examples of the unacceptable, incestuous relationships between defense contractors, energy companies, and the mainstream media. We, the people, deserve better than exploitation by a handful of corrupt white men. We deserve to have our tax dollars invested in education and social justice, not in cluster bombs to shred the bodies of children abroad. We deserve media that reflects the interest and well-being of the people, not the greedy machinations of CEOs who care nothing for the lives of their fellow human beings.
Thank you for your comments.
Big media is already too big. I ask you to stand against its imperial expansion. Thank you.
Mr. Friedman.
Getting late, but I wanted to stick it out if you did. My name is Patty Garcia. I'm a citizen. I have multiple sclerosis, and it's not easy for me to attend hearings like this. I came here today because I wanted to be counted as opposing any further loosening of restrictions on media ownership. I'm glad I came. The free expression I've heard tonight has been much more entertaining and informative than anything I would have watched on television.